Here we are again. This time we are going to do some upgrades and maintenance to the Husky, which has been serving double duty lately as a flat track, or should I say grass track racer. I got some aftermarket wheels, fitted them with some modified forks, and it's been a lot of fun. I haven't spent as much time on it as I would have liked, but seeing that the weather is turning good again, I figured this would be a good opportunity to install this little accessory that I got for this shock. This is the KTech bladder mod for the standard WP shock. So in case you're not aware or familiar with this upgrade, this reservoir has a piston in here. I've shown it a couple of times while I was rebuilding other shocks and also installing this preload adjuster. But basically what happens is if this shock compresses, stiff. Anyway, if this compresses, then this rod here displaces fluid that's in here, because this is all full of fluid. So when this shock rod moves down, there's less volume in this area for the fluid itself. So it gets pushed out here, and we don't want it to get swirled up and turn into froth. So there's a piston, just a disc right here. And on this side of the disc is compressed gas, and on this side is the oil. So as this rod comes down, the piston moves up against the force of this gas. Actually, I can show you the gas pressure because we can do this. So that's about 150 psi of inert gas that we've just released. And that gas was pushing down on the piston. So now without that gas there, if I was to push down on here, yeah, look at that, how much easier it is to push down because there's nothing resisting that piston moving up and down. So what we're going to do now is we are going to remove this reservoir and replace that piston that has a lot of stiction, just like the forks have stiction, like it resists movement. It takes a lot of force to start the piston moving, but then once it is moving, it moves freely. But then when it stops, it resists any additional input. So it's less, the theory is that it's less sensitive to small movements of this shaft because it resists those movements. So it'll be interesting to see just how much different it'll be when I'm riding. So the way the bladder works is that is the movement. Instead of the piston moving up and down, it's just this bladder that conforms to the increase or decrease of fluid in this area, in this volume. So it's positioned there like that. When the fluid moves in, it pushes the bladder in. And of course we also have a pressurized volume of gas in here. So the theory is that it's more compliant. So what we're going to do is we are going to break off the red Loctite that is no doubt around here and remove this and install that. all we really need to do is get it just, yeah, okay, so that's warm up here. It's no doubt hotter at the base. Just, you know, we don't want to melt it. There we go. There. Took some force, but it wasn't difficult. It just helped to cool it down a little. So the thing is, what we'll have to do is, once we've installed the bladder, we'll actually have to break this seal loose to pump out any air that gets trapped in here. I'm also using a new camera to record all this, so I hope it works okay. I hope I don't have to redo the whole thing again. Wouldn't be the first time that's happened. And I hope my dog doesn't complain too much about me using one of his dishes to catch the overflow. And this is actually an aftermarket little screw. There's a tiny little, where is it? Yeah, there it is. There's an O-ring, and it's actually got a big solid piece of rubber in the middle of the screw to hold the gas in. Yeah, see, it's warm. It's hot. It's hot, but it's not melting aluminum hot. I keep saying aluminum. That's what I get for spending so much time with Americans. Oh, look at that. Interesting. There's quite a bit of crud in there. And considering this had new fluid in it, let's see. The bike has done 18.5 hours. So this oil has only done, let's see, I can't remember. I'm not sure if I installed this before I rode it or not, but either way, that is some dirty oil. So, it just shows you how important it is to do regular maintenance. I get a lot of people at the track say, yeah, I change my oil constantly, and I say, which oil? And I say, well, what do you mean? There's only one. Well, actually, there's engine oil, and there's fork oil, and there is shock oil, in addition to your clutch fluid and your brake fluid. So those are all different oils. Yeah, so this is that piston that I was referring to. And there's just 14 psi of air in there right now, which is just 1 bar, which is just atmospheric. If I push on this, you can hear it coming out here. And the tool we use to replace the gas in this reservoir is right here. This was the one I used when I was doing my Aprilia shock rebuild videos. Same exact principle in that as this. So that one This one uses the same shock absorber architecture as that one with some upgrades, and actually same with the little blue beastie. And the MV uses a SOX shock, which is using, again, pretty much the same principle, although SOX have rules all of their own. Yes, those Italian shocks, you'll never see the same one assembled or built the same way 2 different times. Okay, so I was just going to put that, okay, it's cool enough now. I was just going to bolt this straight on, but with all that crud in there, I'm going to have to drain this whole thing. And I don't have enough fluid to replace the entire volume. I was hoping to just do a top up. Okay, well, let's see, what can we see? So there we go. We can see the volume changing when the fluid or the rod comes in and out of the shock body. Yeah, that is totally in need of a complete fluid swap. Okay, well, let's see, how can I do this? Got my vacuum pump and fixtures up there to suck all those bubbles out. So I think what I'll do is I will drain all of this, I'll pop this off, I'll clean the whole thing out, and then, seeing I've already done multiple videos on that, I'm not going to do that again. And then once I've got all that done, once the dirty fluid is out, I'll reinstall, or I will install this, and we will fill it full of fluid, and then we will finish the process. So the next video will be any second now. We're back again. It's a few days later. I have the bladder ready to install. And I was also able to get this little bleeding tool. So it has a valve. We'll connect this to the shock absorber. We have either vacuum or pressure. We'll pull a vacuum in the shock, degas all the fluid, and then pump it or blow it into the shock body. But not until we have securely attached the new reservoir to the shock. So I'm not going to get too aggressive with the red Loctite. Really doesn't need a huge amount. It's not under a lot of force. And we will attach it. Now I do have a oil filter wrench that may help tighten it down a little. I don't want to scratch anything up. So we'll see if that works okay. It might not. Let's see. There we go. Okay, that should be tight, plenty tight enough. Okay. Now, we already looked at how to install this preload adjuster. I believe that's a 7mm hex right there, which I do believe I still have in this one. good for installing the spring. Now, I'm not sure about the pressure that needs to be put into this bladder. So what we'll do is first we will fill the shock, and then we'll see what sort of pressure we need to put in that bladder. Okay, so what we can do is just simulate it being at the top of the stroke. You know what, I can actually put that on. This thing is only held on with there's the O-ring holding in the seal. Oh, sorry, not O-ring, the clip, the snap ring holding in the seal, which is installed. That's pushing against the bump stop. Let's do it this way instead. There we go. All right, let's try this again. We're having battery issues for this camera, so we will try this process again. Okay, so we have the new reservoir screwed on. We used the oil filter wrench to tighten it, put a little bit of red Loctite on the threads. I then installed this little quick release fixture on the fill port. So the shock is completely empty of oil. I've got my degasser here. So what we're going to do is I've put enough fluid in here, which I think is going to be enough. It's most of that bottle, minus some other stuff that I've been doing. And it's in here. We can degas it, which is something I used to do back when I was in college doing composites for aircraft. And we'll block this, pump all the air out, and we can see the vacuum gauge going down, and literally it's sucking any air, there we go, it's sucking any dissolved gas out of the oil, and there's not much in there. Okay, so we should be good. Degas the fluid, pump out all the air from the shock, pull a vacuum in here, and then we will put pressure into this section here through the airline and blow the oil back into the shock. So let's do that. We'll open up the vacuum. So it's now pulling suction through to the shock body. Yep, so I can't pull that up now, and we can see it's pulling whatever vestiges of oil were in the damper body. Okay, we don't need that now, so instead we are now going to pressurize this and blow this oil into the shock body that's now under vacuum. And there it goes. So it's now at 1 atmosphere, and it's pushing the bladder down, and the rest of the fluid's going in. We're at 40 psi now coming out of the compressor. Is there enough fluid in there? Now I don't want to completely fill the shock at its extended point, because I want to leave room in the reservoir to take the fluid that is displaced by the shock rod. Okay, so that's full. So what we'll do is we'll lower the rod halfway And okay, so there's only 20 psi or so coming into here. So we'll lower the rod halfway, and then that's when the reservoir is completely full. We'll turn off the pressure, and so that's locked off here. So there's now only 20 psi in here, and there's 10 psi in here. So we actually have a relief valve there, or I could just now. I don't want this to squirt out everywhere, so I might just get the pressure back to 0 like that. Okay, so now we're at just on 0 pressure. Yeah, there we go. So now there's no pressure in there at all. So it's not going to come shooting out here. I'll just clean that up by doing this. Okay, so that's not going to leak. Put a cap on it. And then we'll remove the filler. Okay, so now it's filled up with a fluid, as you can see, all the way to the very top. I'll just raise it a fraction. There, like that. And seal in just a tiny little bit of air. Or like that. Seal in no air at all. All right. Okay, and then we now need to charge up the bladder. Okay folks, the last part of this video was lost. That's why it's taken me so long to upload it. Finally had a chance to get back out to the garage and finish up. So we've installed the bladder. We use the vacuum tool to suck out all the air and then draw in the fluid. So there's no air bubbles in this section. But this has just atmospheric pressure in here. And we're going to use the needle tool to pressurize this with 150 psi of inert gas. In this particular case, we're using argon. So we just put the needle into the rubber diaphragm in that screw, and we charge it up. There it goes. Once the rod's out, we'll give it a little more than 150. Okay, we're not quite at 150, so let's give it a little more. It's 175. You know what? That's yeah, there it goes. Okay, 150 psi. Yep. Okay, that's it. So now we can reinstall the shock, which goes in very easily from the bottom without the spring, and thanks to this fantastic preload adjuster, we can then install the spring from below, and we are good to go. Alright, so I've also got this new KTech spring. The stock spring was too low a rating for my weight. I'm rather bulky. So that's a stiffer spring. The front spring is specific for my weight as well. So now we really just need to install this lap timer, and then I can fine-tune the settings of the suspension based on lap times instead of just guessing. And we're going to have some fun. So this is the new Metzeler's. In case you're wondering, I have ridden it once this season with that new spring, and you've probably noticed that this video is going up after the engine rebuild video, which is clearly complete. But yeah, because I lost some video, that's why they're going up out of order. Anyway, that's it. We're completed. We're done. So thanks for watching.